I received the news I had been dreading. The tests were all in, and they confirmed the worst. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Essentially, this will be my last holiday season. I've come to terms with what's coming. I'm at peace with it. I've lived a fulfilling life, and I know my loved ones will be well taken care of. Being a naturally private person, I hadn't shared the results with my wife, Emily. I didn't want to burden her until I had concrete answers, so I decided to come home early to have the talk in person, rather than over the phone or through text. As you might guess, my life took an unexpected turn that afternoon. When I arrived home, I spotted my business partner's car in the driveway. It was unmistakable, flashy, expensive, with a personalized license plate. This was definitely not a normal occurrence. I checked our home security system through my phone and saw that it was in privacy mode, meaning it wasn't recording. So I left and went to my farm property. Our camera system is primarily for security, and I usually don't check it unless I'm concerned about something. However, I do enjoy watching for wildlife and tracking storms through the cameras. Years ago, I set up a secondary video recorder to archive the footage on local storage, which I can't access from my phone. Once at the farm, I used my computer to review the recordings from the other server, and my suspicions were confirmed. There they were, cozying up in the living room, drinking wine, dancing, and eventually heading to the bedroom suite. They must have left the doors open because the microphone picked up their activities, even after they left the camera's view. With my time running short, I needed answers, but didn't want the added drama of a confrontation or divorce. Judge me if you like, but that afternoon, all my love and devotion for her evaporated. I'm grappling with the expected emotions, and I know I'm not at fault. I've always been a faithful, loving, and attentive partner. Now I'm focusing on myself. I figured out what's important to me. I contacted my lawyer to review my will and our prenup. I explained the situation and we examined how long this affair might have been going on, and to what extent. What we discovered was unsettling. It's either that I never truly knew the woman I spent over 20 years with, or she has changed profoundly. At this point, I'm keeping this from my kids. Emily and I never had children, and Emily herself. I'll put on a brave face and make it through the holidays. I want to give the kids and grandkids one last memorable holiday with me. I'll play the role of the loving father and grandfather and try to act like a devoted husband for the time being. To address some obvious questions. The other party involved is a widower and not remarried. He's a business partner but not a friend. I don't mix business with friendship. I never married my twins' mother. It was her choice, and I agreed it was the right decision at the time. My kids' mother, Olivia, married a wonderful man named Michael when the kids were 7. Olivia and Michael didn't have any children of their own. I got my act together when the kids were 3. I'd been involved before that, but that's when I started truly becoming the father I wanted to be. Olivia, Michael, and I have co-parented well, and I'd consider Michael a friend. Olivia, Michael, and I are all in our 60s. Emily's nearly 60, and the other party is in his 50s. Emily and I were in our 30s when we married. Olivia and I were very young when we had the twins. They came as a surprise, but they were always wanted. Now the twins are in their 40s, and the grandkids are all teenagers or older. Christmas at our place is a week-long celebration every year. We spend the holiday from Christmas to New Year's at the farm. We cut down a tree together after everyone arrives, decorate it, cook, play games, and celebrate as a family. Olivia and Michael have been part of this tradition since I bought the farm. I'm sticking to my decision not to tell anyone until after the new year. If I told Olivia, she wouldn't be able to keep it to herself. I don't want to put Michael in a position where he has to lie to his wife. My goal is for the kids and grandkids to enjoy the holiday week without any added stress. Emily's presence this week will just be a minor detail in the grand scheme of things. Honestly, I care about her far less than I do about the rest of the family. The financial situation is quite complex. Emily and I got together and married after both of us had established ourselves professionally and financially. She had a good job with an excellent pension and also received 2 inheritances placed in a trust. From the beginning, we agreed that we wouldn't disclose our complete financial situations to each other, a choice she insisted on. We also have a prenup that specifies any property and/or trust assets acquired before the marriage, along with any income from those assets, are not considered marital property. Another stipulation she pushed for. I cover all housing expenses, including utilities as well as travel, food, and fuel. In essence, I support her entirely. Her income and wealth are spent solely on herself. Her car, clothes, personal travel, and cosmetic surgeries. She's beautiful on the outside, but has shown a decidedly unattractive side within. A few days after receiving my diagnosis, I announced my retirement from the nonprofit organization. Knowing what I now know, I noticed Emily seemed a bit uneasy. I can guess why. She'll be seeing more of me now. Tomorrow will be my last day at work, and then I'll focus on spending time with my family. I've given my lawyer access to the camera server from his office. I don't know if there have been any more incidents, but I would assume so. At this point, I don't care. I know my worth and see that the other party involved is a significant downgrade. Despite his flashy exterior, I'm low-key. I drive a 15-year-old pickup truck and prefer jeans and t-shirts, or coveralls in winter. I know for a fact that the other party doesn't have anywhere near the wealth Emily thinks he does. How? Because the trust invests in his business, and I receive quarterly financial reports. I keep my financial details private between me and my accountants. But let's just say that the trust has been growing for 30 years. I live modestly, and there's enough in it to ensure my great-great-grandchildren can enjoy the farm and have their education covered. Emily will eventually realize what she's lost, but I won't be around to see it. December has been incredibly busy. We've been making our usual social rounds over the past few weekends, and the other party was at one of the parties. It was hard not to keep an eye on Emily and him. I don't think anyone noticed I was watching. With all the busyness and wrapping up work, it's been easier to keep my composure. Emily hasn't given any signs that she knows I'm aware of her affair. I'm not proud of this, but I still share the bed with her. I feel like I'm being selfish, using her, but she's apparently been using me for most of this year. I'm not as honorable as some might think. I despise this small amount of deceit. So don't worry about Emily getting everything because she won't. The trust is well managed, with detailed instructions on how it should be handled. Mission accomplished. We had a wonderful holiday week without any drama. I've made it into 2023. I should apologize in advance. Finding humor in my situation helps me cope, even if it makes me seem a bit self-centered. The family left yesterday afternoon, and I only have a few updates to share because I'm keeping the details of our time together private. That's something I want to treasure for myself. A few observations about Emily from this week. I genuinely believe this is the first time she's been unfaithful. Being around us all week seemed to take a toll on her. It's funny how knowing the truth makes someone's actions so much clearer. Emily was unusually secretive about her phone and frequently stepped away from our family gatherings to get some fresh air. The most telling moment was when she said she needed to go into town, and one of the grandkids wanted to tag along. The lengths she went to avoid taking the grandkid were pretty obvious. I even played along by asking why not. Clearly the affair is still ongoing. Now that I'm retired, she's been asking me about my daily and weekly plans. I've been telling her and then inquiring about her plans. Later this week, I'll suggest we meet for lunch since I'll be in the same area as her plans, just to mess with her. I suppose it's true what they say. Unpredictability is a cheater's worst nightmare. This morning, I met with my lawyer. I made some decisions and asked him to draft new documents. I've replaced my temporary will with a new permanent one, which is now signed and finalized. In anticipation of things getting messy, I had him prepare divorce papers based on the prenup and evidence of the affair. Emily will get nothing but 25% of our shared assets, which basically amounts to housewares and furniture. I keep all my liquid assets, retirement funds, and items bought with my own money. Additionally, if I push for it, she could be required to pay alimony. I've signed the documents and have compiled a packet with all evidence of the affair, which I'm holding on to in case I need it. I've sold my loan to the trust, which will then convert it into shares in the other party's company. Speaking of the trust, I've decided on a new management structure. I'll step down to a 1% trustee role, with the twins taking over the majority of the trusteeship. The 4 grandkids will share the remaining portion, with Olivia and Michael serving as proxies until each grandchild turns 24. Once they reach that age, they'll assume their role as trustee. Any leftover fraction will go to Olivia. I've scheduled a meeting with the kids, Olivia and Michael, for next week to explain everything. They'll need to sign documents and will naturally want to understand why I'm making these changes. Once all is settled, my personal assets will include my liquid assets, personal property, and the proceeds from the loan to the other party. In the worst-case scenario, Emily will end up with very little compared to the trust's value. In the coming weeks, I'll distribute a few personal items to the kids and grandkids. Those items are already secured in a location accessible to my lawyer. Regarding my health, just to clarify, I'm not fighting this illness. I'm letting nature take its course, which means no treatment side effects to deal with. I did notice I tire more easily this week, and the family picked up on it too. I brushed it off as just getting older. I still have the cough that started everything. The tumors in my lungs led to the diagnosis. I've been pretending it's just a lingering COVID cough. I expect my condition to deteriorate quickly once other issues arise. But by then, everyone will be aware. I appreciate all the well wishes regarding my health. I plan to spend quality time with the family. A big trip with everyone's various commitments would be challenging, which is why this week was so important to me. It was the last chance I had to be with them for an extended period. I'm considering a small trip for myself, but we'll see. My next goal is to spend a day with each child and grandchild one-on-one. Today, I had my lawyer, a notary, the twins Olivia and Michael come out to the farm. Everything I needed to handle got done, and the process went as smoothly as it could. It's clear that everyone is hurt and angry. When they arrived and saw the lawyer and notary, the tension was palpable. I asked them to sit down and listen to what I had to say, and then sign the papers. I promised to answer all their questions after they signed. They were already aware of the trust. I explained that it was time for me to hand over control to them. I went over how crucial the trust has been in my life, why I established it, and how it was separate from my marriage to Emily, a mutual decision we both agreed on. I left clear instructions on how I wanted the trust managed. We went over how the trust would be divided between the twins and the grandchildren, with Olivia and Michael holding proxy votes for the grandkids until they each turned 25. Their trust in me was evident as they signed and notarized the documents. Afterward, we organized copies, and I thanked my lawyer and the notary for coming out on a Sunday. They were gracious as always. Returning to the dining room, which had become our makeshift conference room, everyone was quiet. My daughter finally broke the silence with a barrage of questions. It was more like a stream of consciousness than a single question. Once she finished, I started discussing my health. I laid out the details of my diagnosis and listened as they made plans to fight it. That's when I had to step in. I explained the odds, mentioned that I'd already sought a second opinion, and then told them what you all already know. I'm not going to pursue treatment. I'm letting nature take its course. We spent the next hour to an hour and a half in heated discussions. My daughter left the room a few times, with Olivia going after her. During their absence, Michael, my son, and I had a heart-to-heart. They might not agree with my decision, but they understand where I'm coming from. The general feeling is that Olivia and my daughter will come to terms with it eventually. Once things calmed down, the next question came. When did I find out? I told them everything. This sparked another round of anger and sadness. I explained that I wanted one last holiday where I wasn't seen as a dead man walking. I was selfish and wished my diagnosis had come after the holidays, so it wouldn't taint their future holidays. My daughter, sensing there was more, turned into a detective. She demanded to know how Emily had kept this from her. That's when I dropped the final bombshell. I recounted the events just as I did in my initial post. Seeing the fury in my daughter's eyes was intense. I told them Emily still doesn't know I'm aware of her affair. I answered the same questions and addressed the same concerns you all suggested, so I guess you prepped me well. In the end, I expressed that I value them far more than Emily. I just want to spend my remaining days in peace, without worrying about Emily. I had to explain my behavior during the holiday week. They pieced together Emily's frequent steps outside for air and her trip into town where she avoided bringing the grandkid. They were concerned that I had gone through all this alone. I mentioned that I have some social media friends who've been a support during this difficult time, though I refused to disclose the specifics. They can find out later. I still want some privacy. The emotions were raw, and we talked as a group for several hours, but I told them I needed to return to discussing the trust. They understand that the trust will help prevent Emily from claiming my hard-earned assets and that it protects them. That's why she wasn't part of the meeting. Next, I shared the financial details of the trust. I suspect they might have thought the trust was just a tax dodge, or a way to protect assets from Emily. They weren't prepared for me to reveal the actual finances. As I went through the assets and balance sheets, the room fell silent. The one question that came up was why I worked so hard all these years when I had so much. I explained my philosophy on personal finance, something they've heard before and take to heart. I told them that I've lived off the trust all these years, used it to put them through college, and supported my nonprofit work. I wanted them to understand that my goal was for them and their children to use the trust to make a difference for others, not just to write checks to charities, but to actively work for causes they believe in. During my time with the nonprofit, I've done more by training others and building relationships than just writing a check ever could. I'm not happy that today marked such a significant change in everyone's lives, both good and bad, because of me. It wasn't how I wanted things to unfold, but it's done. They now know everything. I begged them to let me handle Emily on my own and not to discuss the trust with anyone. For now, we'll keep things as they are. When my health worsens, things will change. They all agreed. We spent the next few hours cooking, talking, crying, laughing, and breaking into smaller groups. They left about an hour ago, but I expect the twins to return. I know they'll share what's going on with their spouses. That's just how they are, and I love my two in-law children very much. Last night was the last peaceful night I'll have. I feel a weight lifted, but replaced with a new weight of worry. I was caught off guard by a visit from one of Emily's girlfriends. Her name is Laura, and she's around the same age as Emily. Laura was with Emily last week for a girls' night, which took place at Laura's house. Emily came home incredibly drunk that night. She used a rideshare service. Laura is an old friend of Emily's, but I guess Emily has forgotten that I was the one who introduced her to Laura. Laura's parents were friends with mine. It seems that my unpredictable behavior has pushed Emily to her breaking point. During last week's girls' night, Emily got so plastered that she ended up confessing her affair to Laura. Despite Laura's attempts to get her to stop talking, Emily kept spilling details about her infidelity. The next day, Laura contacted Emily, who apparently had no recollection of the previous night. Laura recapped Emily's confession, but Emily flatly denied everything, claiming she never said any of that and accusing Laura of being mistaken. Laura, frustrated, told Emily she had a week to come clean, or she'd tell me herself. Since Emily continued to deny everything, Laura ended up paying me a visit. Over coffee, Laura gave me the short version of Emily's confession. Laura seemed to expect me to be devastated, but I surprised her by saying I already knew. I asked if there were any other people around when Emily made her confession. Laura was the only one present. I also inquired if Laura had shared this information with anyone else. Laura took offense at that question, insisting she wouldn't spread such news before informing me. I apologized, explaining that I had my own timeline for addressing Emily, and adding others could complicate things. Laura understood. I asked Laura as a favor to keep this between us and let Emily believe she was getting away with it. Laura agreed to my first request but said the second part didn't sit well with her. I asked her to at least consider it, assuring her I'd be okay. Laura offered her support and said I could ask for anything I needed. I'll likely have to apologize to her later when she learns about my health, but that's a matter for another day. Tomorrow I plan to confront Emily. We have a regular date night, and I intend to calmly lay out everything I know, discuss my condition, and explain that I plan to spend the rest of my life without her. I'm hoping the public setting will help keep the confrontation controlled. Whether it goes as planned or turns into a disaster, I'll provide an update over the weekend. My plan is to give Emily the information I have and ask her not to contact me or my family again. We'll see how it unfolds. Mike Tyson once said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." That definitely proved true for me. My plan didn't go exactly as I envisioned. Let me set the stage for you. Emily and I have a weekly date night, usually at the same restaurant, where we have a regular table in the back, public, but away from the bar area. I decided this would be the location for our confrontation, planning to do it after dessert. I arranged for my lawyer and his wife to have reservations at the same time. I paid for both our party's meals in advance through our longtime server. I had Laura on standby to help Emily after I left. My plan was to conclude the meal with a conversation about our relationship, which I wanted to record. I intended to confront Emily, reveal what I knew, share my diagnosis, outline my plans, and give her a letter asking her to not contact me or my family or come to the farm. I also had a briefcase with evidence and divorce papers for her. I hoped she would keep it together in public to maintain her social status. I did record the conversation. Emily spoke about how wonderful our relationship had been and how great we were as a team. I asked her if I had ever treated her poorly or abused her. She said no. I then asked why she cheated on me. She claimed she didn't know what Laura had told me, insisting that Laura was wrong. I told her I had already known before Laura spoke to me. Emily's confident demeanor quickly vanished, replaced by a look of utter shock. She asked, "What?" I told her to let me finish without interruptions, and she nodded in agreement, her confidence fading to a deer-in-the-headlights look. I explained how after my meeting with the doctor, I rushed home to have a difficult conversation with her. When I arrived, I saw her car and checked the cameras, which were on privacy mode. That's when I decided to go to the farm. I told her I still had footage and watched her expression change. I then shared my diagnosis and my decision not to pursue treatment. Her reaction was one of heartbreak, which angered me. How could she feel sorry for me? I signaled the waitress, who fetched my lawyer. They arrived with the briefcase and the letter. I told Emily I didn't want her to contact me or my family or come to the farm after tonight. I signed the letter and asked the server to witness it. After giving Emily the briefcase with the divorce papers, I informed her I knew much more than she anticipated. I told her the divorce papers were already signed and that she could initiate the proceedings. I offered her the option to stay in the townhouse as long as I'm alive, but said I'd be at the farm and would not see her again. I called Laura to help Emily get home. Emily maintained her composure in public, only managing a quick "but" before I reminded her I was leaving and done with the conversation. I left a generous tip for the server and apologized to the restaurant owner for not giving him a heads up. As I was leaving, I saw my son and Laura. Laura gave me a quick, concerned smile before moving on. My son drove me back to the farm with his wife. They stayed with me Friday night until midnight. I felt relieved but also a deep sense of loss. The next day, the family came to the farm to check on me. It felt a bit like being coddled, but it was comforting. Laura visited in the afternoon and told me Emily had fallen apart Friday night, but had contacted her AP on Saturday. Emily realized she was being used and was in a bad state. Laura assured me Emily didn't ask her to reach out to me, but suggested that a brief conversation with Emily might help her move on and stay out of my life. Laura framed the request well. I agreed to a 2-hour discussion at the farm with Emily. I would have someone with me, and Emily could choose someone to support her. The meeting would be civil, with no blame shifting or excuses. The goal was for Emily to get answers on how to move forward. The meeting took place this morning. Emily chose Laura to be there, which I assume was for damage control. I chose my daughter, aiming to make the conversation as comfortable for Emily as possible to avoid any further conflict. I went into the meeting with a clear goal, to ensure Emily was out of my life. The meeting went as I expected. Emily cried, apologized, and tried to downplay the affair. I wasn't having any of it. I made it clear that she would have a place to live until my death, after which the decision on the house would be up to the trustees. She won't receive anything from my estate or the trust, but she has her 6-figure pension and her trust, so she'll be fine. I have to vent about something. She asked, "Why won't you fight for us?" I almost lost my temper but managed to respond with, "I just don't care about you or us anymore." That response seemed to crush her. I need to express my frustration here. The mindset of a selfish cheater is baffling. Even after ruining someone's life, they still expect that person to value them enough to fight for them. It's infuriating. I wasn't worth fighting for against her desires or greed. I'm done with her. Sorry for the rant. Emily got the answers she asked for but clearly didn't want. I have no interest in more meetings. They distract me from focusing on what I want to do. After Emily and Laura left, Laura returned a couple of hours later. She and I had a quick conversation. It turns out that the AP had received notice from the trustees about converting the loan into shares of his company. Since the trust will be the majority owner, they're demanding a full forensic audit. My daughter, with her MBA, is already on top of things. Emily went to the AP for comfort and realized what I had suspected all along. He was using her to see if she could buy the loan from me. There were hints in the recordings that he had ulterior motives. Now that the paperwork is filed and Emily is out of my life, he no longer has any use for her, and made that clear. Emily also confided in Laura that her trust is exhausted and she will only have her pension income. She thought life with the AP would be more glamorous than with me. She genuinely believed his net worth was higher because of his flashy lifestyle compared to mine. She had planned to divorce me when he professed his love and desire to marry her. It's disgusting to see her greed and shallow nature exposed. While I won't witness it, I'm sure my family will eventually tell her about my worth after my death. I'm relieved that her true colors were revealed now, so I can deal with her and spare my family from her. Laura surprised me with an unexpected offer. She suggested that now that I'm free, if I need companionship, I should give her a call. I challenged her, asking why, with my diagnosis, would anyone want to spend time with me, given there's no long-term future. She responded that just because Emily was ignorant and didn't know what she had, doesn't mean other women wouldn't value spending time with me. She said I'm a great man, and any time with me would be cherished. She even implied that she might be first in line for any potential lady callers. I asked if most people would know Emily and I were separated, and she said that while Emily wants to keep it quiet, she and Olivia will ensure the story gets out. I was polite but told her I'd think about it. She smiled and gave me a kiss on the cheek. I've thought it over, and I'm pretty sure I don't want that complication in my life right now. I've left out quite a bit, but those are the highlights. I'm doing okay, though it's been a roller coaster. I need a few days of peace and quiet. The social circles will soon know about both the breakup and my diagnosis. I anticipated this, but I don't want to be treated differently. Life is what it is. Time to start dinner and relax this evening. First, I want to say that I'm doing okay. I'm still up and about, which is a blessing. My coughing has worsened a bit, and I'm feeling more winded, but overall, it's been a good week. Let's start with Emily. She has completely withdrawn from the community. Her status took a nosedive, and she was politely asked to step down from her leadership roles. Most of her social circle has judged her harshly and questioned her about chasing after their husbands. She's tried to reach out a few times, including through proxies, but I haven't responded. I've made it clear through intermediaries that I've said what I needed to say and know all I need to know. I have no interest in her seeking closure. Her selfish need is no longer my concern. As for details about the affair, it seems they had been involved for at least 6 months. They took 3 trips together, one where they played newlyweds, another celebrating a 20-year anniversary, and the last was a coincidental meeting at the same hotel on vacation. Emily used my house for their meetings due to its privacy and bought a second car, which she kept in town to avoid recognition. Her meticulous efforts to hide the affair reinforce my feelings and decisions regarding it. I have no regrets about how I've handled things. The drunken confession to Laura was partly a result of my unpredictability, but also due to the AP's distancing after receiving notice of the sale of his loan to the trust. Emily's drunken revelation to Laura came after the AP started losing interest and distancing himself from her. It's clear that the AP had ulterior motives. Emily's pathetic actions don't excuse his. He wanted Emily's help with the loan, and she was after the flashy lifestyle he offered. It's intriguing how people with such negative traits seem to attract each other. While some might work on reconciliation out of devotion, it wasn't for me. The AP is unhappy with my daughter's intentions and plans to challenge them in court, potentially costing him more money. Rumors suggest he's been trying to raise funds from other investors to pay off the loan. Unfortunately for him, news of his actions has spread among my business acquaintances. As I've said before, invest in people, not just companies. Few want to invest in him now. I'm not sure what my daughter has in mind for his company, but she'll ensure it continues for the sake of the employees. I hope any issues in the company's books are correctable. Family time has been wonderful. I attended a high school basketball game with the family and hosted a poker night with old friends, my son, and my grandson. It was great to see the old school camaraderie and for my grandson to experience it. We've had 3 family meals this week, and Laura joined us one night for dinner. We ate and talked, but I kept her at a distance. I'm still not comfortable letting her in fully. Working on the farm brings me comfort. I check the fences or drive around them, monitor the animals, oversee the employees, and help with equipment maintenance. Knowing that the farm will stay in the family and continue running gives me peace. A part of me will live on through it. I've had several friends visit, and someone suggested a living wake. I think that's what they meant. I'm encouraging anyone who wants to visit to come by. I enjoy spending time with these folks, even if it might be the last time. I'm still here, though it's been a bit rough. I recently spent a few days in the hospital after being found unconscious but still breathing. Despite my do not resuscitate order, I never actually died. Hospitals have never been my favorite place, and with my diagnosis, I now detest them even more. I'm determined not to die in one if I can help it. I've been back home for a while now. I can no longer drive off the farm, and honestly, the doctors don't even want me driving on the property. Nevertheless, I'm determined to keep up with my chores and enjoy the sunrises and sunsets as long as I can. I also have full-time home healthcare workers, whom I refer to as my babysitters. I'm not going to fight the family on that. I don't remember much until I woke up in the hospital. My family and Laura were there, and the doctors were just observing me and running more tests. For almost the entire time, either my twins, Olivia, or Laura stayed with me. One night, when no one was with me, Emily managed to get into my room by using her wife status on a duty nurse who didn't know the restrictions. She was playing the sweet, devoted wife, which I found bewildering. When I realized she was holding my hand and stroking my head, I pulled away. Her reaction was one of hurt, and she began apologizing, claiming she didn't mean what she said to the AP, that she was just trying to use him, etc. I remained silent and unengaged, which upset her further. She raised her voice just enough to catch the nurse's attention. The nurse noticed the situation and asked Emily to step outside under the pretense of needing to perform some checks. Once Emily was out, the nurse asked if I was okay and if there was anything she could do to limit my stress. I asked her to call my emergency contacts. She did, and within about 45 minutes, Olivia, my daughter, and Laura arrived. Emily, upon seeing them, knew it was time to leave. I quietly asked her to go, stressing that her presence was upsetting and disruptive to other patients. She reluctantly left after giving me a quick peck on the forehead. I recoiled, but I accepted it for the sake of maintaining peace. The women in my life apologized profusely. I can't be angry with them. They have their own lives and acted quickly to ensure I wasn't left alone again. My daughter made sure to thank the nurse for calling them and expressed her displeasure at the staff for letting Emily in despite clear instructions. This incident made it clear to me that Emily is like a drowning person, grabbing for anything to keep afloat. It's evident that she views me as just another means to an end. Each encounter with her reveals just how dark her soul has become. As for the AP, he's still a jackass. His accounting department has seen the writing on the wall and has been forthcoming with my daughter about his financial activities. There's no criminal conduct, but it's clear he's been exploiting every loophole to increase his income at the expense of the company's bottom line. When my daughter takes control, he'll face a significant reduction in the company's value, around 60%. This has clearly infuriated him. There's a possibility she might fire him outright and demote him to a silent minority owner, which will likely crash his flashy lifestyle. He's threatened lawsuits but hasn't followed through yet, and his credit and reputation in the area are likely in ruins. Laura has become a more regular presence in my life. I don't mind her company and companionship. Perhaps she's wearing me down. She's been staying over several days a week, which helps since I can no longer drive. This is new territory for me, and I'm relying on others more than ever. Laura has eagerly volunteered to support me in this area. And before you ask, there's nothing physical between us beyond sitting close together. I've been taking it easy for a few days since coming home. My family has likely heard much of this before, but I want to share it here for you and them. To my family reading this, I love you very much. In my earlier posts, we discussed control, honesty, and money. My reflections come from a place of humility. Life hit me hard early on, and though it took a bit, I was forced to learn humility. That lesson became a mindset that has served me well throughout my life. Knowledge is king. I've always believed in the value of learning. If you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, and you're deluding yourself. No one can know everything. When you meet someone, recognize that they have something to teach you. It takes 10,000 hours of practice to master a complex skill, and none of us can master everything. So if you think you're the smartest, Ask yourself who knows more about a particular topic in the room. Engage with them and learn from their expertise. On the flip side, when someone seeks knowledge from you, be generous with what you know. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And remember, the only stupid question is the one not asked. Strive to learn something new every day. Being in the moment has two aspects: truly savoring experiences and genuinely listening to others. Cherishing the moment. There's a mindset that suggests you only live once, leading some to collect experiences as if they're trophies. This approach often results in spending more time planning and documenting than actually enjoying the experiences. From my travels, I've found the greatest joy in simple moments: sitting in a cafe and watching locals, or having a deep conversation with someone new. I may not have climbed the Eiffel Tower or taken a gondola ride, but I've shared meals with loved ones and had meaningful conversations in picturesque settings. These moments, however small, have become a part of me and made me feel like I've lived a well-lived life. Listening and hearing. This is an area where I've struggled. In my younger days, I was often focused on inserting my own knowledge into conversations rather than truly listening. I missed out on valuable insights others were sharing. Even now, my mind can race with follow-up questions rather than fully absorbing what's being said. I have to actively remind myself to listen. Growth and reflection. Embracing these principles should positively impact you. We are always growing. Learning and experiencing new things, even if only slightly, makes us more interesting, compassionate, and wise. Never stop striving to be a better person, and be a part of that growth cycle for others. Self-reflection is crucial. Spend time alone, contemplating what you've learned and experienced. Allow these thoughts to pass through your humility filter. A few minutes of such reflection each day can bring clarity. For me, watching the sunrise and sunset serves as a form of reflection. Journaling works for some, but I typically engage in inward dialogue. I believe this encapsulates the foundations of my life. I am, at heart, a simple person with simple principles. I love you all.